I think I've experienced just about every kind of weakness imaginable, and the Lord's been faithful in all of it. I can think of being exhausted in spirit, exhausted in terms of time, depleted. I can also think of times of being weak and feeling vulnerable and alone in ministry. That sometimes happens too. But I think the clearest issue to me in which the Lord showed his faithfulness was what can only be described as physical weakness. And this was at a point of medical urgency. I had needed emergency surgery for a second time due to a problem. And I wasn't recovering from the surgery and just felt inside myself that something horribly was wrong. And I was told that it was just the normal complications after surgery, but it turned out I had bilateral pulmonary emboli, a very deadly condition. And, when you talk to doctors these days in the terms of all the miracles of modern medicine, and a doctor says, this is what the problem is, they generally say, this is what we're going to do to fix it. And I can remember asking the doctor if everything was going to be okay, and he didn't say yes. And for the first time in my life, I recognized, I am mortal, and that mortality can happen very quickly, and I'm entirely dependent on the Lord. The weakness came down to this. There was not a thing I could do to help myself. Nothing. There was nothing I could do in the moment that would make the slightest bit of difference to the situation. There were medical professionals, but it was clear that as much as they were God's gifts to me and represented the very height of their profession, they weren't exactly sure how this would turn out. But the Lord showed himself faithful in terms of my wife and family, faithful in terms of my friends, faithful in terms of the institution that I'm privileged to serve, faithful in terms of the ministry, faithful in terms of my heart. I knew the assurance that I was his and that I was safe in Christ. And so I would simply say that the Lord showed me a strength that I knew could only have come from him and a recovery that is entirely to his glory. But in that moment of physical weakness, I was fundamentally aware that there was not a thing I could do for myself. In retrospect, that's a really good moment for a Christian.